everybody, and welcome to Crow. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are here today to talk about possums. My name is Breanna, and I'm our rehab manager here. I've been here for 5 years, and this is Gigi, our Virginia opossum. She has been here with us a little over a year. She is about a year old, and she is here because she's missing a very important part of her body, her tail. So we'll get to know her a little bit more during the presentation and afterwards as well. Like always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments section. If you absolutely love what you see, feel free to hit that donate button at any time, and I hope you enjoy yourselves. So normally when I do this presentation in person, I start by asking who here doesn't like possums, and I usually get 3 or 4 people that really don't like possums, and that's totally fine. We're here to educate everybody today in the hopes that you come out of this liking possums a little bit more than you did previously. Hopefully Gigi helps with that as well. Now, possums are native to North America. They also go down into Central and South America, and they even go as far up north as Canada. Now, these green areas, if you can see them here, these are the most highly dense concentrations of possums. So possums are really wonderful for the environment. They're really wonderful for us as well. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but if you love nature and you love everything about flowers and botany and everything out there, then you should definitely want possums within your range. Now, they are North America's only marsupial, and that's absolutely amazing, which means mom, when she gives birth to her babies, they will crawl into her pouch immediately. So, being our only marsupial, they have a pretty wide range, and they have adapted to survive in a lot of different climates. Now, as typical animals in Florida go, everything down here is a little bit smaller. So all of our birds of prey, all of our mammals, everything's a bit smaller than what you see up north. So the possums you see down here might vary slightly in color as opposed to the ones up north living in the snow, and they're also a lot smaller down here. So down here our possums are about maybe 3 kilograms or so, whereas up north they can be 6 to 9 kilograms. So that's pretty big size difference. Now, as you'll see, they all have the same generalized look. People describe them as large rats. And yes, that is, a pretty good description, but there's a lot more to them than just another rat, considering they're a marsupial. She may explore during this whole presentation, so we'll just keep an eye on her. That's her job. Now, possums don't require a whole lot to find an area suitable for habit. So all they need is a generalized food and warmth. So possums, they don't have a nest, they don't have a den, they don't even have a particular home because they are what we call a nomadic species. Possums can walk about 25 miles a day in search of food and shelter. However, if they find a really great place that has a constant food supply and a great safe place to lay their head, they will stay there for longer periods of time. People commonly find them underneath their decks, in their garage. If you put out food for stray cats and things like that, your possums are most likely eating the food more than the cats are. And they will be very, very quiet about them. You probably won't even see them coming and going from the food bowl. So it doesn't matter where they find to survive. They can live in a chicken coop, they can live in your basement, they can live in hollowed out trees. It doesn't matter as long as there is a safe place for them and as long as there's a good food source. Now, we have actually come across possums that get into trash cans. It's a pretty common thing actually because there's so much good food in there for them. They love dead and decaying roadkill. They eat a lot of roadkill, they eat a lot of bad fruits and veggies, so all the moldy ones that we throw out, they hop right in there and try to eat them. So to help prevent this stuck situation here, just close your trash cans very tightly and offer up bungees if needed. Now, these are some pretty cute pictures of possums, and that's because we love baby possums here at Crow. But there is a very big misconception about how possums get around. So most people believe that possums actually hang from their tails to get around, and they sleep hanging upside down, like bats. That's not actually the case. So the little ones like this, they can hang from their tails to get from branch to branch, but they can't do it for long periods of time. And as the possum gets bigger and bigger, it becomes less possible for them to do this because it's too much strain on their tail to hang like that. So their body is just too big to support, for the tail to support that weight, and it can lead to spinal injuries, which is why you should never pick a possum up by its tail either. The babies are very inquisitive, but up to a certain size, they stay with their mother. So you will see possums walking around fully covered in babies, just like this one here. Mom gets to a point where the babies are just so every now and then, and that is how we get a lot of the babies that we see here, which we will talk about in a little bit. So absolutely adorable, but you can see, based on the use of that tail, they are nothing like rats. So possums have a prehensile tail, and that is a very important feature for them because without a tail, they can't survive in the wild. And that's exactly why Gigi is here with us. Now, she came in with a couple of her siblings. Unfortunately, something happened to her tail out in the wild. It was traumatically amputated, and when she came to crow, she was already missing that tail. So we did raise her up with her siblings. When her siblings were ready to go outside and be introduced to the wild and the environment and start learning how to be possums, we separated her out and we started training her to be one of our animal ambassadors because without a tail, she would not be successful in the wild. And that is a very important reason and a very important thing that helps them get around. So that tail allows them to scale the skinniest fences, helps them walk across the tiniest wires, run through the brush, run up and down trees and that type of thing because they have their tails to support their body weight. Without that tail, they rock back and forth a lot. They don't have very great balance, so they definitely need that tail to get around easily. So possums are like living dinosaurs. The oldest fossils known that possums would have come from and the marsupials that they have derived from started way back 65 million years ago, just around the time of the dinosaurs. And it's funny that I put this photo in here because like the dinosaur has a lot of sharp teeth, so do possums, as you see here. Now possums have 50 razor sharp teeth, and I mean they are so strong, and that's because of the foods that they have to eat. They have to be able to tear meat apart, they have to be able to find all the great foods, and to do that they do require sharp teeth. Now, most people don't realize this, but possums only survive about 2 to 3 years in the wild. That is a very short lifespan. And it's not necessarily because they've been hit by a car. It just so happens to be that their genetics make it so they age very, very rapidly. Now, in captivity, you can get 4 to 5 years out of a possum, but surprisingly enough, they will succumb to issues like arthritis or potentially hip dysplasia or diabetes or anything like that, which can be very similar to what humans experience as well. So being in captivity, we have to make sure they have a very specific diet in order to prevent obesity or heart issues or anything like that. Now with possums having been around for so long, they have adapted to survive, and that's absolutely incredible. And we'll talk about that shortly. So here we go. Now possums have quite a few adaptations that help them survive out in the wild. The first being that tail that we talked about, that prehensile tail that helps them get around very easily. The next one is their nose. Now possums have very poor eyesight. They can likely see shapes and different things moving and objects and that type of thing, but whether they can distinguish one thing from another is very unclear. So without the great eyesight, they have wonderful noses. Now they are long pointy snouts, and that is how they find their food. Now they eat a lot of insects. Now that's really important. So as they're digging around with their nose in the ground, they can happily and very easily find various bugs and worms, fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, all those horrible things, and they can eat them right up. Now with that nose, it also helps them to find different roadkill items that may be out there. So they are what we like to call nature's cleanup crew. So they will actively prevent the spread of disease by eating any animals that might have succumbed to certain diseases, because possums won't come down with that disease if they eat that animal. The next adaptation is their feet. Both their front and their back feet have adapted for them to be able to do what they do. So up front, this top photo right here, it's kind of hard to see, I'm sure, from your screen at home, but possums have this beautiful indentation that runs directly down the center of their foot. And it is so that they can actually wrap that hand right around the branches or the fences or whatever it is that they're climbing on to get a better grip. Now Gigi's favorite thing to do with that indentation is to take little lake smelt, tiny little fish. You'll see, hopefully she'll eat one for you in a little bit. And she actually picks it right up like a popsicle and holds on to it as she eats it. So that is her using her adaptation in captivity. The next portion of the feet is the hind feet right here. So this is very interesting because possums have an opposable thumb. So just like humans, just like primates, they also have a thumb, though it's on their back feet. And that's pretty impressive because that means with both their front and back feet, they can completely grip onto something, which is pretty impressive. Now, Gigi, she climbs pretty easily, although she doesn't have the best balance, but she does actively use all 4 of her extremities to grip onto different things. So if she is being held in her hands, her back feet will grip the shirt that she's holding onto, and her front feet, if if you have long hair, she'll grab right onto your hair and right onto your shirt as well. So she has great contact and she's making sure that she is well supported at all times. So how are possums good for us? And most people don't realize a lot of this because, one, we don't see a whole lot of possums. With them being nocturnal, they typically move around at nighttime. You may never come across them. If you do, maybe you startled one and it gave you a nasty hiss, so you just don't really like them very much. That's reasonable. But there are a lot of good reasons that we should like them, and we should spread the word about how great they are because people don't realize. And without us educating more people, then there's no way to spread the word. So this is my favorite. Possums are a pollinator species. So just like bees, possums are actively spreading various seeds and pollens and planting new things. So possums pollinate a little bit differently than bees do. They actually do it every time they poop. So they eat so many seeds and fruits and vegetables that every time they go to the bathroom, they have the potential to plant something new. It just so happens that their poop is so rich in nutrients, it creates a great growing environment for new things. For a great example, one of our old possum ambassadors, Sneezy, he absolutely loved tomatoes, and so when he would go out and graze in our gopher tortoise grazing area, he would walk around, and if he went to the bathroom, no joke, a couple weeks later we'd have little tomato plants starting to bloom. Over the years we have had quite a few successful tomato plants grow thanks to our possum ambassadors, which we were then able to use to put towards the food for all of our other animals here at the clinic. So they do actively spread gardens, they spread different greens, and as trees come down, they're eating the nuts and all the seeds, and they can replant those things. So that's a pretty impressive feat. So I always tell people, if you have a great garden and you want a better garden, hopefully you have possums around. They may eat the fruits and veggies you're growing, but they will plant them a lot more. So very impressive thing that they can do. They are also part of the circle of life. Now, possums are what's considered a prey species here. So in the circle of life, unfortunately for them, they do become prey for other animals. So down here in Florida, some of those animals might include coyotes, bobcats, alligators, various bird of prey species. But possums do something that's really interesting to prevent being eaten. So what they do is they play dead, or they play possum. So it is pretty interesting. So with the circle of life, they eat various greens from the wild, they eat small insects, they eat small rodents, they eat whatever they can really to survive, and in turn it goes back into the environment through secondary consumers, and everything goes nicely with the circle of life. So these are some of the primary ones that we have down here. Up north, you would also be considering different bear species, mountain lions, and that type of thing as well. So I like to say nothing is impossible instead of nothing's impossible when talking about possums because they are pretty incredible animals. So like I said earlier, they do eat fleas, ticks, and mosquitoes. So a lot of people are concerned when they see a possum walking around that it has diseases. That is not something you have to worry about. It is extremely rare for a possum to walk around with distemper or rabies or Lyme disease because their body temperature sits too low for any of those things to set in the body, replicate, and take over. So because of their lower body temperature, they actually stay a lot more healthy and can prevent the spread of disease to humans, our pets, our friends, our family, and all the other wildlife. So through eating the fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, and all that other nastiness out there, they are preventing the spread of disease to humans, and there actually have been studies done that prove that people who live in areas with high possum concentrations had a lower rate of Lyme disease. So they are actively keeping us safe, even if we don't know it. So having them around in your yard, if you have pets, absolutely fantastic, but keep a close eye on the possum because they will likely fall over and play dead if they come in contact with your pet, and we don't want any possums getting hurt in the process. All right, so about that playing dead. There are two variations, and it is so important for you to know this because if you see a possum in the middle of the road, it's very important to get them off the road to the side. So when possums play dead, it's not something they choose to do. It just happens. Their body goes into this state, and they can't really reverse it. Some possums will play dead for 15 seconds. Some play dead for a few hours. Honestly, it just depends when their body overcomes that state and comes back to. So if they see that they can't see, that's the thing. If they're crossing a road and a car's coming from the other direction in the opposite lane, all they see is a giant shadow coming, they can hear something, and they immediately become startled and they fall over and play dead. Well, now there's a perfectly healthy possum that unfortunately got startled in the middle of the road, and they need to get out of harm's way. So here is how you can determine, is this possum alive and does it need help? So the first variation of playing possum is this top one over here. They kind of lay down, they go into a catatonic state. So their body appears to go into rigor mortis, their heart rate lowers, their respiratory rate lowers. It's very hard to see if they're breathing. But the key sign for this is they start secreting this really nasty green mucus from their anal glands. And it smells worse than death. It smells like they are trying to replicate death because they're not dead. So in doing so, the idea is that it might ward off predators from trying to eat them because they smell so dead. They smell like something made them sick and they passed away from something horrible. I have actually seen dogs come up to a possum playing dead, run the opposite direction because the smell was really pretty terrible. So green mucus from the anal glands, that is definitely one sign. But most of the time, if possums have succumbed and passed away, most of the time you're going to see various signs of trauma. So you'll see blood, you'll see broken bones, anything like that. A lot of the possums that are just playing dead have nothing physically wrong with them. So that is one key characteristic. So the next one, they go into this really beautiful ball, they open their mouth and they bare all of their razor sharp teeth. And at the same time they start drooling, and it's not like a dog drooling for food. I mean, they will coat their body in this really nasty saliva. So it actually almost appears as though they have just been thrown up, from my experience. So if you see possums that are doing either of these two things, it is usually safe to say that they are likely playing dead and can't move at the moment. So don't be afraid if you see one in the middle of the road, toss a towel right over top of it, pick it up and just kind of gently put it off to the side of the road so when it comes back to, it's not right in the midst of traffic. If you don't want to touch possums, that's totally fine. You can also take a little box, just put it on its side next to the possum, and you can use anything to roll the possum right into that box so that you can shuffle it right across the side of the road. If you find one in your yard and you are very concerned because you have dogs or cats or anything that are out, feel free to do the exact same thing. The one thing I ask that you don't do is pull a possum by its tail because, again, it can't always support the weight of its own body. So we do see a lot of hit by car possums here at the clinic, and that's because during baby season, which is right now, it started maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, and it will go through the next month or two. The mom possum that carries her babies around, she will walk miles and miles and miles a day in search of food and shelter for her and her babies. So seeing a mom possum out during the day is not unusual. She will keep going until she finds somewhere safe. So it's okay that they're awake during the middle of the day because they're trying to find somewhere safe to go. So if you do see that there is a possum out there struggling, give your local rehab center a call. Ask if what you're seeing is appropriate and if there's anything that should be done. With all the good stuff about possums, we do want to encourage people to save as many of them as possible, obviously. So like I said, I have Gigi here. Here's a couple cute photos of her. So this was Gigi as a baby when she first became an ambassador for us. And this was her celebrating her first birthday just a few months ago. Very exciting day for all of us. But Gigi was one of those babies that got separated from mom. So when her siblings came in, it was very easy to tell right from the start that she would be non-releasable. So all those things we talked about, why it's important to save possums. Gigi is wonderful for her species because she really shows people that there is nothing to be afraid of. They are good animals. She is a wonderful brand ambassador for the possum species because a lot of people that are afraid of possums, a lot of people that don't like them based on what they grew up learning, what they were told, anything like that, she kind of shows them all the great things that they've been missing out on. So hopefully at the end of this, she will be hungry enough because I brought a wonderful snack for her so you can actually see close up what it looks like when she eats. So she came in as a baby. Now, marsupials are a little bit different than mammals. Marsupials are born about the size of a jelly bean, and that's pretty impressive. A mom possum can have 20 babies at one time. Now, because she's a marsupial and has a pouch, she only has 13 teeth. So only the first 13 little jelly beans that crawl into the pouch and latch onto a teat have the ability to survive. Of that, maybe 6 or 7 will survive the first couple months, and of that, maybe 4 to 5 will survive up to juvenilehood. So as you can see, top photo, they are little jelly beans. So marsupials, and this is very interesting for possums because we have to tube feed them to care for them. So they don't suckle milk like our raccoons do or any of our other baby mammals. We do actually have to tube feed them, and that's because being a marsupial in mom's pouch, the second that jelly bean gets into the pouch, they latch onto a teat. So they swallow mom's teat, and they keep it swallowed for the next 2 months or so. So they live with the teat constantly down their throat, offering food to their bellies at all times, and that's how they grow very successfully. So we kind of replicate that by tube feeding them. It's the safest way to do it for possums, but they do come here at all different stages of life. So the jelly bean is the first stage there, and then as they get a little bit bigger, you know, it's hard to see if mom has babies because she can close her pouch entirely. So unless you feel babies moving in there, if you know it's a female, we always check the pouch when they come in just to see, firstly, does mom have babies? And if she does, how do we appropriately care for mom and make sure those babies stay nice and healthy? So we get quite a few moms that come in with babies about this size. They're just starting to get peach fuzz. You can tell that they're possums. But she has the ability to suck them right back up into her pouch and close it off entirely to keep them nice and safe. So we will try to keep mom and babies together at all points during rehab here, if possible. If we do have to offer mom medication or surgery or treatment that might affect the development of the babies, we will separate them and raise them as 2 separate patients here. And in different variations of the sizes that we see here, possums this size, about hand size, they should be brought into the clinic. People always ask, you know, how do you know if it should come in? What is the specific size? Generally, possums that are over 200 grams are good to be on their own in the wild, even if they fell off mom a little bit early. So a lot of the individuals that we're getting are under 200 grams, haven't learned how to be without mom, aren't successfully finding food, and they come in because they have, for some reason, prematurely fallen off mom. Now there is also photographic evidence, it's very interesting, of mom possums rubbing their babies off on a post and running away. We don't know why. Maybe mom was overburdened by the amount of babies she had. Maybe she thought they were freeloaders and they were just there hanging out too long. But things do happen, and sometimes those babies fall off, and we will absolutely take them and care for them to the best of our abilities here. Now, as far as the feedings go, like I said, we do tube feed them from a very early age, and as soon as their eyes open, we will start offering a milk formula. A lot of people ask, well, how do you determine what foods to give them? So we use a very specific milk formula that has nutrients compatible with possums. Now, it's very different than what you read on Google, so just because you've gone to Google and Googled how to care for a baby possum doesn't mean it's giving you all the appropriate information. Unfortunately, a lot of people who have done that, they end up bringing their possums to us because something's not quite right. And what's not quite right is they're missing a lot of nutrients, and they've ended up with metabolic bone disease or other growth deformities or issues, or even skin issues as well. So we are very cautious with what we feed them. We have to do certain ratios of proteins and fruits and vegetables, and we have to really keep a close eye to make sure that they are developing appropriately. So if they get too much sugar, they can become very obese very quickly. They can also develop diabetes, which is not something that we should ever see in a captive animal whose diet is being managed, but it can happen in the wild very often when they come across people's trash. So another important reason as to why you should keep your trash cans latched very easily. Now, as soon as their eyes open, we will start offering them milk in little cups, and they will start drinking very quickly. They like the taste of it, and as they start growing a little bit more, we can mix in a mashed kitten chow diet. So just kitten chow soaked in water, added to the milk, and they will start lapping that up kind of like a mash, and then they'll learn about chewing, and then we can add in more solids, and we will start introducing various proteins that they'll find in the wild. And after a certain size, when we deem them appropriate to go outside, we will move them to our outdoor enclosures, which introduces them to various weathering events, especially here in Florida, our 4 o'clock showers. Introducing them to all the wild animals that we have on property, the bobcats that walk through, the hawks that scream during the day, the crows that are flying around, and just kind of start teaching them about what it means to be wild. Now at that point, they do start to become very nocturnal, so they really don't come out during the day, which is totally normal. And overnight, it looks like they have thrown a big party in their cage. There's food everywhere, there's poop everywhere, they have been foraging all night long, and this is really when we teach them how to be possums. we don't just assume because they're eating outside in a cage that they'll be successful in the wild. So we like to introduce the various types of foods that they will find in the wild. Natural berries, natural greens, sometimes some fruits and vegetables, all types of insects so that they learn exactly what to smell for, exactly what to look for, and what is or isn't appropriate to eat. Now, these photos over here, Mom Possum came in, this was a couple years ago, but we did keep her and her babies together during her entire stretch of rehab here, to the point where when she got released, the babies were too big to ride on her, so they all just kind of ran off separate directions together. But they did stay together, and Mom did actually, you could watch her teaching the babies where to go to eat, what to look for, how to climb. She would even kind of pick them up and move them around. So it was a very interesting case to watch. But as they go outside, you start to see that real possum instinct kicked in. So once they're inside, being treated as babies, they really don't have that mentality to fall over and play dead. However, some of the younger, more aggressive cases that we have, they come in as babies, they're very fearful, and if you open the cage, every single possum in there will just fall over and play dead. It's kind of like the fainting goats, if you have ever seen that on YouTube. But that's the best part about going outside. You really do want to see them start to wild up. You want them to be fearful of humans. You want them to have that appropriate response to any type of predator that might be coming towards them. And obviously, release is our ultimate goal. Now, possums, they come from all over the place, so we don't like to load up our possums and release in just one area. We will spread them all over Lee County. We will disperse them heavily in different areas, but we do try to keep them as far away from people as possible. Although they get along just fine with other animals, they can cohabitate in yards with various wildlife, and we really do just strive to kind of get them away from humans to prevent any further issues, especially, if they came in because Mom was hit by a car, if they came in because they were found in someone's swimming pool or anything like that. So we do our best to avoid any further human interaction. We release them, and we have two different types of release. So we have a hard release and a soft release. There are some possums that we will continually go back and provide food for a couple days just to make sure they have picked up on their new surroundings, how much to eat, how to forage, how to find safe places. And over the course of just a couple days, they really pick it up quite quickly and they do just fine. The hard release is where they came in bigger, they don't need that additional assistance, so you can just turn them back loose to the wild. The bigger possums that come in, the juveniles and the adults, we will return to their natural environment where they came from because they have an established territory. Not that they have a necessary home, but they know that area very well, so we will try to return them if possible. So what can you do to help? Well, spreading the good word is the first part of it. Because so many people are afraid of possums because they get such a bad name for some reason, it really is important to spread all the good news about what they do and how it's important to help them. Another big thing is bungee cording your trash cans if you have issues with that. We've had several cases where possums get stuck in the bottom of a trash can, and next thing you know, the trash people have come and there's a possum in the trash receptacles. Also recycle appropriately. There have been cases of raccoons, possums, other mammals, and that type of thing that get stuck in our recyclables because we haven't disposed of them appropriately. So pick up your garbage, pick up your recycling, cut up the soda can holders. You can see this possum had one that was looped around its neck that it couldn't get off. So that's a very important part of it. If you have any concerns about possums, instead of just trapping and relocating first thing, give us a call, ask if this animal needs help, if it's doing okay. We can give you all sorts of information based on just a photo. We can tell you if it looks healthy and happy. We can tell you if it looks like it's not doing so well. Based on your descriptions, we can tell if it's lethargic and needs to come to the clinic. So before taking matters into your own hands, please feel free to call a wildlife rehabber and they can give you a little bit more information. And if you see a possum in the middle of the road, don't be afraid to stop. Possums, and this is kind of funny, they really don't have much of a neck. So if you pick them up right around the middle section to just scoot them over to the side of the road, they really can't turn enough to bite you. But we always suggest having dual layer protection and using a towel or any type of garden gloves or anything like that to help as well. But don't be afraid to check. And that's mostly because mom possums, if they've got little jelly beans in their pouches, if mom passes away, those babies can survive 24 hours after mom passes away, which is just an absolutely horrible thought. So by checking one life, you might be saving a whole bunch of other lives in the process, which is really what we strive to do here. So So thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully Brian can help me zoom in on Gigi here while she eats her snacks. If you liked what you saw, please feel free to donate. If you can't donate right this second, just spread the good word. Education is our best chance at teaching people how great these animals are. We do have our online gift store, which is very exciting. People have been loving it. Check it out. And if you loved what you see, come visit us on Facebook, on Instagram. We share a lot of great photos, videos, release videos, lots of educational things that everyone would be interested in following. And thanks for joining us today. Okay, let's see if she's home. Hello. Would you like a snack? That was so soft. Would you like to come out? So as you can see, as Gigi's out, you'll notice that she is missing that beautiful tail of hers. So she really just kind of looks like a small Arctic wombat, if you think about it. She has this beautiful kind of whitish coat coloration. Like I said, the coats come in all different colors. We see some very, very dark possums, almost black in color as their fur. She kind of looks like a northern possum. A lot of them up north are very, very light in color, mostly because it has to do with some extra camouflage, you know, how they've adapted to survive winters up there. So she is quite a good looking possum actually, but yeah, you can see she doesn't have a tail, and without that tail she really doesn't have very good balance when it comes to survival skills in the wild. So she's really not good at climbing trees. She can climb some very, very small fences. She can get about a foot up and then she realizes this is a horrible idea and she backs her way down. But without that tail, there's really no way for them to get around safely enough to survive in the wild. And you will see she's got all of her little digits spread out evenly up here in the front hands, and that is where she has her beautiful little indentation to help grab onto fences and different bushes and trees and whatnot. Maybe we can even sneak a look at the thumb on the back foot. You can kind of see under there, she's showing, let's see, can I have this? Thank you. You'll see right there, she's got that thumb on the inside of each of her back feet. And being in captivity also means that she does get her nails trimmed pretty frequently. Unfortunately, because she's not climbing, she can't actually do the filing down herself. So she is very, very good about having them trimmed, and someone can just hold her, offer her a quick snack, we trim them real quick, and then she's back to doing whatever she wants. She is a volunteer favorite. Part of our volunteering with rehab means helping out with our ambassadors. So whether it's Billy, our armadillo, some of our birds, or Gigi, we love that they get exercise every single day, exercise, love, you know, just keeping them very active and making sure that they are living the best life that they possibly can be. So she gets lots of different enrichment. We cut various greenery from outside. Down here we have great palm fronds and different grasses. And we can also provide for her scent enrichment. So whether that's rubbing different insects or rodents on different greens that we have, or even using different scents like vanilla or lemon or peppermint or anything like that, and putting that on different enrichment items as well. She really, really likes it. Her favorite thing to do though is sleep. So most of the day she does spend sleeping. She does help out in rehab by sleeping in the laundry room. She's very helpful. She also helps out our office administrator by sleeping by her feet in our upstairs office. So she is quite the support possum, but she was not the best at the start. So like any wild animal, she does have wild tendencies. She can startle easily, and she also is a little bit wary when it comes to meeting new people. So we like to offer lots of positive-based enrichment, positive-based training with using, obviously, good snacks. But overall, she is absolutely a fantastic ambassador. And being just a year old, hopefully we have her for another 4 to 5 years. And she is absolutely wonderful. We couldn't be happier.
I just want to say thank you again. Say thank you again.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on this Wildlife Wednesday. I hope you love Gigi as much as I do. It looks like she can't decide if she wants to go back to sleep or not, or keep eating. So if you have questions, post them in the comments and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And if there's anything else we can do for you, let us know. I hope you have a great day. Thank you.